The Generals of the Yang Family, Chapter 44.
So imagine you've survived a brutal, just a decades-long war.
Right, the kind that just rewires your brain completely.
Exactly. And the treaties are finally signed. You've won. You are standing in the capital of your empire, being hailed as a hero.
Sounds like the perfect ending.
You would think so, right? But then, in the dead of night, the ghost of your murdered father appears in your window.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he tells you that everything you fought for, like everything you sacrificed, was just an elaborate lie.
That is quite the hook.
Right. Today, we're looking at Chapter 44 of the classical Chinese epic, The Generals of the Yang Family. And we are taking a stack of translating sources and unpacking a narrative that just masterfully blends military politics, supernatural visitations, and covert espionage.
And we are doing this to explore a very specific, deeply unsettling theme that runs throughout all this material. Because on its surface, this text looks like a straightforward legend about ancient warriors and cunning empresses.
Yeah, swords and sorcery kind of stuff.
Exactly. But beneath that, it is a surgical examination of how the trauma of war, the crushing pressure of a family legacy, and really just a single moment of human insecurity can completely unravel a fragile peace.
Which perfectly frames our central argument today. We're not just going to walk through a sequence of historical fiction. We are going to explore how peacetime actually destroys the wartime mind.
That's a great way to put it.
Because when your brain is fundamentally wired for conflict, a sudden transition to peace doesn't bring relief. As we'll see with the legendary Yang family, the absence of an external enemy simply forces all that aggression inward.
It breeds paranoia.
Exactly. Paranoia and ultimately devastating self-destruction.
Yeah, it's that psychological phenomenon where the armor coming off is actually the most dangerous moment of a soldier's life.
Wait, really? The most dangerous?
Yeah, because it leaves all their psychological vulnerabilities completely exposed to the open air. There's no shield anymore.
So, to you listening right now, I want you to step into that exact mindset. You have survived the unimaginable. The battlefield is quiet, but you are about to discover that your biggest missions and your absolute biggest tragedies are still ahead of you, waiting in the dark.
So let's set the stage.
Right, let's open at a moment of supposed absolute triumph. We have Liang, the celebrated general of the southern forces, and he's just been rewarded by the emperor.
The war is over, time for medals.
Exactly. His subordinates are being handed these official peacetime administrative posts, but Liang hits the brakes.
He says no.
Well, instead of taking up his new mantle of power, he asks the emperor for a delay. He says he needs to stay behind in the capital to care for his elderly mother, the formidable Lady Yang.
Okay, interesting.
And to his men, he offers a choice. He says, take your new posts and go be administrators, or take a massive payout of gold and silk and go home to your villages.
The contrast there between the emperor's mandate and Liang's responses, well, it's our first major clue to the character's internal state.
The emperor is declaring that the era of the sword is over, right? And the era of the brush of bureaucracy and administration has officially begun, but Liang is actively resisting that transition.
I want to introduce a theory here, actually, because my initial read on Liang asking for this delay isn't just a simple demonstration of filial piety.
Which is a massive virtue in this cultural context, obviously.
Right, of course it is. But it actually feels like a profound avoidance tactic.
Oh, absolutely.
Like looking at the text, Liang seems entirely institutionalized by the military apparatus. He knows how to command an army in a life-or-death struggle, but the prospect of navigating the nuanced, often treacherous waters of peacetime administration, it terrifies him.
It's completely alien to him.
Right. So he retreats to the only other rigid hierarchy he understands, which is his family unit and his mother.
I think that is a highly accurate read of his psychological profile. Institutionalization in a military context strips away your civilian identity.
Because the military provides a perfectly legible world. Exactly.
Okay.
You know exactly who your enemy is, you know what your tactical objective is, and you know the absolute loyalty of the men standing to your left and your right.
Everything is black and white.
Yes. Peacetime introduces ambiguity. Bureaucracy is murky. So by retreating to Lady Yang, he is essentially refusing to demobilize his own mind. He's clinging to the role of the dutiful son because the role of the peacetime politician just feels entirely unsafe.
And his treatment of his subordinates reinforces that exact idea. His top officers, guys like Yusheng, Meng, Liang, Jiao, they come to him and say they cannot bear to leave his command.
They're attached to him.
deeply. They attribute all their success to his leadership. But Lu Lang essentially acts as a release valve for their pressure. He tells them to either exert their talents for the state or take the gold and become civilians.
It's a deeply pragmatic, almost exhausted form of leadership.
Yeah, exhausted is the perfect word. He isn't enforcing some rigid, eternal blood oath to the military. He recognizes the bone-deep war weariness in his ranks.
He recognizes it because he is suffering from it himself. Liang understands that a soldier forced into a peacetime bureaucratic role is a dangerous proposition.
Right, a ticking time bomb.
Exactly. So he's offering them an exit strategy from the trauma. And what is fascinating is that the text tells us about half the ordinary soldiers take the money and leave.
They just want to buy a farm and forget the bloodshed.
Yep. But the core group, his elite operatives like Meng, Liang, and Jiao, they refuse to go.
Because they're just as institutionalized as he is.
Right. Their entire sense of self-worth is completely tethered to their commander.
Which isolates Lu Lang even further. And the source text leans into this isolation with a poetic interlude that is just, it's dripping with atmospheric grief.
Oh, the poetry in this text is phenomenal.
It really is. So it's September, a clear, starry night. Lu Lang is walking alone in his courtyard looking up at the sky, and he composes a poem. And I want us to really dissect the mechanics of the imagery he uses here, because it's the key to his entire mental state. In classical Chinese literature, these poetic interludes are never just decorative filler.
Right. They're not just there to sound pretty.
No, they're structural devices. They're used to bypass exposition and give the reader a direct, unfiltered scan of a character's internal emotional landscape.
And this landscape is incredibly bleak. The poem mentions the miserable autumn clouds gathered by the west wind. He talks about wild geese flying in formation in the twilight, landing on sandy shores.
Which prompts him to ask a very specific question.
Yeah, he asks, "Where's my homeland?" He describes vast, endless waters stretching north and south and calls himself a traveler on the river at the edge of the world.
Just profound loneliness.
Yeah, and he laments the separations of his twilight years and wishes he could pull the waters of the river into his cup to wash away his infinite sorrow.
If we break down that specific imagery, we can see how his wartime mindset is processing his current reality. Take the wild geese, for example.
Right, what do they represent?
They're a traditional symbol of exile and longing, because they migrate such vast distances. But notice how he observes them? They are flying in formation.
Oh, wow. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, even when he looks at nature, he sees military structure. He is projecting his own lost army onto the birds in the sky.
That is tragic. And the phrase, "Where is my homeland?" That's devastating when you realize he is physically standing in the capital of his own empire.
That is the ultimate paradox of the survivor, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He is geographically home, but psychologically he's entirely displaced.
He feels like a traveler at the edge of the world because he actually inhabited the world of constant warfare and immediate survival. It no longer exists.
The peace treaty essentially erased his homeland.
Exactly.
And the sorrow he mentions, the sorrow he wants to drown with an entire river of wine, is profound survivor's guilt. He is mourning the separation from his men, but more deeply, he is mourning the separation from his own purpose.
Because he's a weapon that's been sheathed.
Yes, and he is realizing that a sheathed weapon has absolutely no function.
And it is right at the apex of this intense, solitary grief that the narrative radically shifts gears. We go from psychological realism to supernatural intervention.
Here comes the ghost.
Here comes the ghost. Lu Lang finishes his poem. He goes inside to his western window, preparing to undress for bed. And suddenly, an eerie, unnatural gust of wind blows into the room.
Such classic ghost story framing.
Totally. He looks up, and standing there in the dark is the ghost of his murdered father, the great patriarch Yang Yi.
This is a monumental shift in the text. You have to understand, Yang Yi's death is the foundational trauma of the Yang family.
Right, he didn't just die of old age.
No, he died a tragic, fiercely loyal death in enemy territory, and his shadow looms over every single decision his sons make.
It is entirely reminiscent of Hamlet on the battlements, you know? You have the restless, wronged father returning from the void to hand his son a grim, unresolved burden.
And Lu Lang is terrified, of course.
Naturally. He asks his father why his spirit is lingering after all these years. And the ghost's response is where the cultural mechanics of this story become incredibly complex.
Because the ghost doesn't just say he's haunted or cursed. He tells Lu Lang that because of his ultimate loyalty and righteousness in life, the Jade Emperor The supreme deity in the pantheon of Chinese folk religion has officially rewarded him.
Wait, rewarded him?
Yes, Yang Yi has been deified. He is now the god of prestige and awe.
Okay, that sounds like a good thing.
It is. He explicitly states he has no regrets about his spiritual promotion. However, he reveals that his physical bones are still unburied in the north, stranded in enemy territory, and because of this, his soul remains a wandering entity.
See, I really need to push back on the logic of this situation to understand it fully, because if we look at this from a Western, purely ethereal perspective of the afterlife, it seems completely contradictory.
How so?
If he is officially the god of prestige and awe, promoted by the supreme ruler of the cosmos, why does he care about his skeleton? I mean, why can't a literal deity just magically fix his family's luck or manifest his own closure? Why are these dusty physical bones serving as a literal battery pack for his spiritual power?
That is the essential question to understanding the worldview of this text. In this cultural framework, spiritual elevation absolutely does not negate the necessity of physical rights.
So they're tethered together.
Yes, the afterlife is viewed as a mirror of the earthly bureaucracy. Being named the god of prestige and awe gives Yang Yi a title, but without a properly anchored physical body, he's essentially a high-ranking official without an office.
So the spiritual promotion is abstract, but the physical bones are the anchor that makes it real in the human world.
Precisely. The physical body and the spirit are inextricably linked through the practice of ancestor worship. The bones are the tangible proof of the lineage.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if the patriarch's bones are abandoned in the wilderness of enemy territory, the family's cosmic order is fundamentally disrupted. The living descendants cannot perform the proper physical rites of veneration.
Which means they can't receive the blessings of the ancestor in return.
Exactly. It's a reciprocal relationship.
Yeah.
So while Yang Yi, the spirit, is honored in heaven, Yang Yi, the father, is suffering a profound indignity on earth. And that indignity corrupts the entire Yang family's standing.
Which makes the ghost's next revelation absolutely earth-shattering for Liang.
Because Liang thought he already fixed this.
Right. Liang is utterly confused. He says to the ghost, wait, 10 years ago, I sent Meng deep into Yuzu on a covert mission. He stole your bones back? We brought them home. We buried them with full honors. What are you talking about?
And the ghost drops a geopolitical bombshell.
He really does. He says, you have no idea about the strategic trickery of the Northern Empress Dowager Jiao. The bones you stole were fakes.
It completely upends a decade of assumed closure.
Just shatters it. And the ghost instructs Liang to verify this with his fourth brother, Yanlang, before dissolving back into the wind. So Liang is left alone in the dark, forced to realize that the family's defining victory over the past 10 years was actually a humiliating defeat.
And when Liang asks his mother and his brother Yanlang the next morning, Yanlang confirms the entire deception.
Yeah, Yanlang explains that after their father died, the Northern Empress Dowager Jiao, who, by the way, is renowned as a brilliant, terrifyingly cunning strategist.
Oh, she is formidable.
She knew exactly how the Southern forces operated. She anticipated that the Yang family would inevitably mount a Black Ops mission to retrieve their patriarch's remains. So she engineered an elaborate double-blind shell game.
A masterful piece of counterintelligence.
Really is. She took fake bones and hid them in a location called the Hongyang Cave, deliberately making them look like the prize. But she took the true, authentic bones of Yang Ye and placed them on a highly guarded structure called the Wangxiang Terrace.
The strategic depth of Empress Dowager Xiao's deception is stunning. She didn't just hide the bones. She created a honeypot designed to satisfy the South's desire for closure while maintaining her own strategic advantage.
Now, looking at the Empress's shell game, my first instinct is that she just wanted to psychologically torture and humiliate the South. Like, it feels deeply vindictive.
It does feel that way.
But from a purely militaristic standpoint, going through a decade-long charade over a dead enemy's skull seems like an immense waste of resources.
Yeah.
There has to be a structural, tactical reason she kept the real bones on the Wangxiang Terrace. Like, why are these bones treated like nuclear launch codes?
They are treated as nuclear launch codes because, within the logic of this conflict, they actually possess that level of deterrent power.
Really? Just the bones?
Yes. The text clearly outlines that the Northern forces deeply fear Yang Ye when he was alive, and they fear his spirit even more in death. To surrender his true bones or to allow them to be stolen would be perceived by the Northern military as surrendering a massively powerful spiritual talisman.
Because the bones contain the prestige and awe.
Exactly. They contain the very power the ghost spoke of. By physically holding the patriarch of their greatest enemy hostage, the North maintains a psychological and spiritual supremacy over the South.
And the specific location she chose is incredibly deliberate. The Wangxiang Terrace translates to the Terrace of Gazing at the Homeland.
Such a cruel name.
It is. She literally placed his bones on an elevated platform facing the south, so his spirit is forced to stare eternally at the home he can never return to. It isn't just a vault, it's a meticulously constructed psychological prison.
It is a flex of absolute dominance.
Right.
It proves she understands not just the tactics of the battlefield, but the psychological geography of her enemy.
So Liang is now faced with a massive tactical dilemma. He knows the real bones are sitting on that terrace, but we have to remember the broader context here. The war is officially over.
The treaties are signed.
Right. The emperor has just released northern captives as a gesture of goodwill. There's a peace treaty. So Liang's mother, Lady Yang, approaches this with bureaucratic logic. She says, the North has surrendered. We have peace. Why not just send an official diplomatic envoy to the northern court and formally request the return of the remains?
From a civilian perspective, Lady Yang's proposal is perfectly rational. You have established diplomatic channels. It is time to use them.
But Liang shuts that down.
Immediately. And this is where we see Liang's cynical, battle-hardened realism override the illusion of peace.
Yeah, he analyzes the geopolitical reality and concludes that if they ask officially, they are exposing their intelligence. They are admitting they know about the fakes.
Which gives the North the upper hand again.
Exactly. And because the North fears the spirit so intensely, they will simply lie to the Southern envoy, hand over another box of fake bones with a smile, and the South will have absolutely no recourse.
Liang understands that peace treaties are fragile fictions written on paper.
Just paper.
Yeah. The baseline level of trust between these two empires is still absolute zero. He recognizes that statecraft and official diplomacy are entirely useless when you are dealing with the currency of spiritual hostages.
So what's his play?
To him, the peace treaty is just a change in the weather, right? Doesn't change the nature of the terrain. He concludes that some objectives cannot be negotiated in the light. They must be taken in the dark. They have to launch another covert operation.
Which means Liang has to call in his most trusted operative, Meng Liang. This is the man who pulled off the original heist 10 years ago.
The operative who unknowingly brought back the fakes.
Right, which has to sting. So Liang brings Meng Liang into his inner sanctum and explains the failure of the past mission. He tells him the real bones are on the Wangxiang Terrace, and he needs him to go back into enemy territory to correct the historical record.
Meng Liang's reaction to this assignment is highly revealing of the military mindset we discussed earlier.
He doesn't even flinch, does he?
He does not hesitate to accept the risk. His loyalty is total. But he immediately displays a dangerous, almost fatal level of overconfidence.
Yes, his arrogance is palpable in the text. He essentially laughs off the difficulty of the mission. He tells his commander, look, we did this 10 years ago during the absolute chaos of active warfare. Now, the world is at peace. Stealing them now will be effortless.
Which is a terrifying assumption.
Yeah, and Liang tries to rein him in. He explicitly warns Meng Liang not to underestimate the enemy, noting that the guards on the terrace will be incredibly strict. But Meng Liang dismisses the warning, boasting that the northern guards cannot withstand a single axe blow from him.
Meng Liang is making a fundamental miscalculation about the environment. He assumes that the absence of a declared war equates to an absence of danger.
He thinks peace makes everyone soft.
Exactly. He is viewing the mission purely as a physical kinetic challenge, a calculation of whether he can swing his axe faster than the guards can draw their swords. He is completely failing to consider the chaotic, unpredictable variables inherent in an uncoordinated covert operation.
And that failure of imagination is the exact flaw that sets up the tragedy. Meng Liang swaggers out of the room, assuming he has a monopoly on the mission. But this is where the narrative shifts from a geopolitical spy thriller into a claustrophobic, agonizing psychological disaster.
Because secrets don't stay secret.
Never. In a sprawling military camp, secrets are virtually impossible to keep. Early the next morning, another of Liang's fiercely loyal, highly skilled generals, Jiao, is walking through the compound and overhears the servants whispering.
The servants are gossiping about Meng Liang's secret departure, confirming the rumors that the commander sent him to retrieve the true bones of the patriarch.
And Jiao Zhan's reaction is just visceral.
Instantaneous. And to understand his reaction, we have to rethink the typical dynamics of a military unit.
Right, because I don't want to use a cliche analogy here, like comparing him to a backup player on a sports team who wants to steal the spotlight. That diminishes the life or death stakes these men operate under.
So how do you read him?
I think Zhao Zan isn't just a jealous teammate. He is more like a hyper-aggressive immune system that suddenly has no infection left to fight. The war is over. The external threat is gone. He has all this built-up tactical aggression, all this desperate need to defend the host body of the Yang family.
I love this analogy.
And without a clear external enemy to attack, that aggression turns inward. It starts attacking its own tissue.
That is a phenomenal way to conceptualize it. It perfectly captures the toxicity of peacetime for a soldier who lacks a war. Let's look closely at Zhao Zan's internal monologue as presented in the text.
What's going through his head?
He stands outside the commander's quarters and thinks to himself, Meng Liang has repeatedly accomplished things for our commander. I've been in the tent for years and haven't contributed even a little. I should go first and steal them. Wouldn't that be my glory?
But I have to fundamentally question Zhao Zan's logic here from a tactical perspective. These men are brothers in arms. They have bled together. They are supposedly unified under the singular banner of the Yang family's honor. Why on earth would a seasoned veteran risk the sacred, irreplaceable remains of his commander's father and risk triggering a massive international incident during a fragile peace solely to satisfy his own ego?
Because we are dealing with the crushing psychological pressure of existing within a living legend. The Yang family is a mythic institution.
The pressure must be insane.
It is almost suffocating. The pressure on the subordinate generals to continually prove their worth and secure their place in that mythology is immense. Zhao Zan isn't acting out of calculated malice toward Meng Liang.
He's not trying to hurt him.
No, he is acting out of a desperate, consuming panic that he is becoming obsolete. He looks at Meng Liang and sees the favored son, the operative who is trusted with the family's soul. Zhao Zan feels invisible.
And that craving for validation just completely overrides his tactical training.
Completely. He doesn't pause to consider the catastrophic risks of two uncoordinated operatives infiltrating the exact same target. He simply packs his weapons and rushes off to Yuzhou in secret, desperate to beat Meng Liang to the prize.
It's the ultimate recipe for a disaster. You now have two heavily armed, highly trained, extremely anxious operatives, both operating under immense psychological pressure, heading to the exact same heavily guarded location in the dark with absolutely zero communication between them.
It's ticking time bomb of friendly fire.
Exactly. And it perfectly illustrates our central argument. Liang's strategic plan was perfectly sound. It is the unspoken insecurities and the toxic rivalries bred by peacetime stagnation that introduce the rogue variables, systematically destroying the operation from the inside out.
So the narrative camera cuts back to Meng Liang.
Right, he has been pushing hard, traveling by starlight, and he arrives at the perimeter of Yuzhou right around dusk. He is a professional, so he is wearing the disguise of a northerner. But as he approaches the Wangxiang Terrace, a patrol of 5 or 6 heavily armed enemy guards intercepts him.
They surround him.
Yeah, they surround him, demand his identification, and accuse him of being a southern spy.
This is the moment where Meng Liang's actual skill as a seasoned operative is put to the test.
Because he doesn't fight them.
No. And a lesser soldier would panic, draw their weapon, and try to fight their way out, which would immediately sound the alarm and doom the mission. But Meng Liang doesn't rely on kinetic force here. He relies on intelligence. He leverages the broader geopolitical context to disarm them.
He tells a brilliant, highly contextual lie. He tells the guards, I'm not a spy, I'm a border guard for the North. I just finished my assignment escorting those released Northern officials from the South back to our territory. The mission is over, the peace treaty is in effect, and I just came up here to relax and take a walk.
It is masterful because it uses the very real, very recent political developments, the peace treaty and the release of captives, to build an unbreakable alibi.
He gives them a story that fits their worldview.
Exactly. It confirms to the guards what they already believe about the state of the world, that there is peace. The guards accept the logic, lower their weapons, and let him pass. He uses the illusion of peace as his camouflage.
It works flawlessly. The sun fully sets and it becomes pitch black. Meng Liang quietly, methodically sneaks up the stone steps of the Wangxiang Terrace. He reaches the top level and there it is. He finds a wooden incense box.
The prize!
He opens it, feels the contents in the dark, and thinks to himself, this is structurally different from what I stole 10 years ago. This must be the real deal. He carefully wraps the wooden box in a bundle, secures it tightly to his back, and begins his descent down the steep, narrow stairs in the absolute darkness. He believes he has won. She believes he has secured the legacy.
But we have to consider the immense cognitive load Meng Liang is experiencing in this exact moment.
What do you mean?
He is deep behind enemy lines. He is physically holding the most politically and spiritually explosive artifact on the continent. The physiological reality of a covert operative in this scenario is extreme hypervigilance.
His nerves are completely fried.
Yes. His heart rate is elevated, his pupils are dilated trying to gather light in the dark, and his nervous system is flooded with adrenaline. He is expecting a lethal ambush with every single step he takes.
And the ambush does come, but from an entirely unimaginable source. As Meng Liang is creeping down the blind stairs, suddenly, from the level immediately below him in the pitch black, a hand reaches out and violently grabs him by the heel.
Just horrifying.
And a harsh, demanding voice rings out from the darkness. Who is doing deeds on the terrace?
Put yourself inside Meng Liang's central nervous system for a microsecond. You are alone in the dark on an enemy watchtower. An unseen force has just physically immobilized you.
You don't have time to think.
Your brain does not have the processing time to analyze the acoustic signature of the voice or consider the statistical probability of who it might be. The frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for logic and restraint, entirely shuts down.
The amygdala takes over.
Total control. It is pure fight or flight. And for a veteran shock trooper like Meng Liang, the response is exclusively fight.
The text is brutally clear about his reaction. It says Meng Liang is in such a state of immediate panic that he cannot distinguish the voice. His combat conditioning completely hijacks his body. Without a fraction of a second of hesitation, without asking a question, his left hand draws his razor-sharp battle axe and he swings it blindly, with lethal force, downward into the darkness toward the voice.
It is a devastating, fatal reflex. It is not a conscious choice. It is the tragic consequence of a nervous system permanently wired for war, operating in a space where it doesn't belong.
The axe connects perfectly. It cleaves directly into the skull of the person holding his ankle. The grip on his heel instantly releases, and the heavy body collapses onto the stone steps. It is a sudden, brutal, entirely silent kill. Meng Liang freezes. He grips his axe, waiting for the inevitable consequences. He expects war horns to sound, torches to ignite, and dozens of northern guards to swarm up the stairs to avenge their fallen comrade.
But they don't.
But nothing happens. There is only dead, suffocating silence.
And ironically, it is the lack of an enemy response that triggers Meng Liang's tactical suspicion. His rational brain begins to come back online. He analyzes the data.
Why isn't anyone screaming?
Right. If that was a northern patrol, why was there only one man? Why isn't anyone screaming for reinforcements? The tactical mathematics of the encounter simply do not add up to an enemy ambush.
So, heart-pounding, he slowly creeps down the remaining steps to where the body has fallen. He leans in close. The text specifically notes that he looks down under the starlight. The dim light catches the face of the man he just killed.
And this is the moment.
And Meng Liang reels back in absolute, unadulterated horror. He screams out into the night, "Is this not Jiao Zhan?" He frantically turns the heavy body over to inspect it closer, and the nightmare is confirmed. It is Jiao Zhan.
His brother.
His closest brother in arms. The man he has fought beside for years. He has just executed his own comrade on an enemy watchtower.
The profound tragedy of this moment cannot be overstated. If we evaluate this strictly from the parameters of the mission Liang assigned, Meng Liang is a success.
He got the bones.
He has the authentic bones secured on his back. The objective is complete. But the cost of that success has instantly mutated into an unbearable horror. It is the most agonizing form of friendly fire, birthed entirely by the collision of Jiao Zhan's rogue ego and Meng Liang's deeply ingrained combat panic.
Meng Liang's immediate reaction is incredibly hard to read without feeling the weight of it. He looks up at the indifferent sky and cries out to Jiao Zhan's lifeless body, "You came here specifically to achieve success for the commander. Who knew you would only end up destroying yourself?"
He realizes the futility of it all.
And then, in a moment of terrifying clarity, Meng Liang realizes the absolute permanence of his own action. He states, "Even though I have stolen the bones, it is impossible to redeem this sin. The sacred relics on his back, the very foundation of the Yang family's honor, suddenly mean absolutely nothing compared to the blood soaking into his hands."
It completely and fundamentally shatters his psyche. We're talking about a warrior who has likely killed hundreds, perhaps thousands, of enemy combatants over his career without a moment of moral hesitation.
Because that's the job.
That is the job. But killing his brother, his peer, because of a stupid, entirely preventable failure of communication in the dark. It destroys the moral architecture of his universe.
But I want to genuinely debate Meng Liang's next decision here, because I struggle with his reaction from a purely utilitarian standpoint.
Okay, what do you mean?
He has the bones. The entire cosmic order of the Yang family depends on those bones returning to the capital. Why doesn't he just strap Jiao Zan's body to a horse, carry the bones back to Liang, confess what happened, take his punishment even if it's execution, and ensure the decade-long mission is finally complete? Why does his personal shame suddenly override the strategic survival of his commander's family?
That is a phenomenal question, and answering it requires us to dissect the concept of the heroic ideal in this literature. In a modern military context, yes, you complete the mission, extract, and face the court-martial. But Meng Liang operates within a rigid, hyper-traditional culture of honor and ritual purity. Returning with the bones tainted by the sin of fratricide would spiritually pollute the very artifact he is trying to save.
Oh, because of the blood on his hands.
Exactly. He cannot present the sacred bones of the patriarch with hands covered in the blood of the family's most loyal servant. The shame is not just a personal feeling, it is a cosmic stain. He realizes that by killing Jiao Zan, he has disqualified himself from being the instrument of the family's salvation. The hero narrative is broken beyond repair.
So he makes a choice that is both strategically necessary and personally devastating. He manages to sneak out of the heavily fortified city, carrying both the bundle of bones and Jiao Zan's corpse.
He's just wandering in the dark.
Yeah, it's late, around the second watch of the night, perhaps 10 p.m. He is wandering the dark, empty areas outside the city walls, and suddenly he bumps into a night patrolman, an old man walking the streets, ringing a watchman's bell. Meng Liang, operating on pure desperation, grabs the man.
The poor guy must have been terrified.
The patrolman is terrified. He immediately throws his hands up and begs for his life, crying out, "Please don't hurt me. I'm not a northerner. I'm an exiled southern soldier. I'm just an old man who couldn't afford the journey home after the war, so I'm stuck up here in the north working as a lowly night watchman to survive."
The introduction of this specific character is profoundly brilliant narrative design. Think about the scope of the story so far.
It's all been giants.
Exactly. We have dealt with legendary undefeated generals, a brilliantly cunning Empress Dowager, and the deified ghost of a patriarch authorized by the Jade Emperor. The narrative has been exclusively populated by titans, and here, at the absolute climax of the crisis, the narrative drops an absolute nobody into the center of the frame.
Just a completely random guy.
A nameless, displaced, homesick old veteran who is entirely invisible to the grand machinery of history.
And Meng Liang looks at this trembling old man in the dark and says, "This is my commander's good fortune." He makes a split-second monumental decision. He unstraps the priceless bundle containing the true skull of Yang Ye, the literal artifact that entire armies have mobilized over, that spies have spent decades dying for, and he shoves it into the hands of this complete stranger.
It's insane.
He gives the old man a set of frantic, precise instructions. Take this bundle, walk south to the capital, Beijing, find the Yang family mansion, deliver this directly to Commander Yang Liang. You will be heavily rewarded for the rest of your life. Meng Liang explicitly refuses to give the old man his own name. He just begs him, with the weight of a dying man, not to fail the delivery.
The level of trust placed in this anonymous, terrified stranger is staggering, but it is the only logical move left on Meng Liang's board. He is essentially delegating the salvation of the Yang family's soul to a man he met 3 seconds ago.
Because he has to.
He has to transfer the burden because his own journey is forcefully concluded. He has ensured the mission has a chance to survive, which frees him to finally address his own insurmountable guilt.
Because the moment the old patrolman takes the bones and hides them in his coat, fleeing into the night, Meng Liang turns his full attention back to the grim reality lying in the dirt. He carries Jiao Zan's heavy body out into a secluded hollow outside the city walls. And the scene the text paints is just unfathomably bleak.
It's the end of the road.
Meng Liang stands alone in the wasteland. He draws his own sword, the weapon of his legendary career. He looks down at his dead friend and screams into the empty night, "Jiao Zan! Jiao Zan! It is I who wronged you. I must follow you to the underworld so we can be together." And with a single decisive motion, he slits his own throat.
He commits suicide right there in the dirt, bleeding out over the body of the man he accidentally murdered.
It's horrific.
It is the absolute, total collapse of the heroic ideal. The text concludes this agonizing sequence by offering two poems praising the men, but the praise is laced with a deep, cutting irony about the nature of their demises.
Yeah, the poems really rub it in.
The poem, dedicated to Meng Liang, reads, "The hero who won 100 battles and made the enemy flee, today gives up his life in the north, making travelers weep." And for Jiao, the text laments, "The brave warrior who always charged first in battle. Peacetime did not allow the hero to be seen, causing his bones to end up on the northern border."
It is a devastating summation. These two men survived the horrors of active combat. They survived the chaos of a collapsing empire. They survived the enemy's blades, only to die in the dirt, entirely alone, far from home, victims of a tragic, entirely preventable misunderstanding, born of their own inability to adapt to the silence of peace.
It is nothing short of a Shakespearean tragedy of brotherhood.